All right, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be showing you how I use the solid state logic controllers in my workflow when it comes to mixing. I can use some of this stuff when mastering as well, but I usually use it during tracking and mixing. I'm going to be going over what I would use the UF8 for, the UC1, the UF1, and the SSL12 audio interface. It's just basically how I would use it. Now, these things can do a lot more than what I'm going to be showing you, but everybody's not going to be using everything that it can do. It's just, it might be a little bit too overwhelming, but it can do a lot more than just play, pan, adjust the volume. It can do a lot more than that. So let's get into it. Let me show you how I would use it. Oh, and if anybody's interested, I do mixing and mastering and production. So if you need anything, go ahead and look us up. All right, let's get into it. Okay, before we get started, let me explain what this right here represents. A lot of people know, but this is just for the people that don't actually know what this represents. This represents a large format console in the box. All right. When you use certain plugins, you can get quote unquote console sound without having the big, huge console. It's not just a controller. At the end of the video, I'm going to be showing you some examples of how this sounds, just compared to a regular DAW in the box. Now, you don't need this. You can actually use just a laptop and the plugins, but this and the plugins give you not only sound, but it also gives you tactical feel and speed over what you're doing instead of using a mouse and clicking around. That's what this represents. Just keep that in mind. This represents a large format console in the box. And personally, in my opinion, this is the way of the future. Okay, so that's number one. Now, the other thing is, before I bought the SSL controllers, I used to own a Console 1 and the Console 1 fader. So I had one Console 1 unit here, and then I had 2 additional faders, which gave me 20 faders. I ended up switching over for this because I get more functionality, and it also talks to the audio interface, which is over here. We'll get to that in a second. It comes with the mixing console software in the box. The Console 1 and the SSL can basically do the same thing, but this gives you more functionality over your DAW, along with sounding like an SSL console. And you can actually read things a lot easier on this compared to the Console 1. That was one of the complaints from owning a Console 1, and a lot of people, kind of griped about it. Is that you can't read everything. It's too small. And once the lights get dim like it is now, you can't read the words whatsoever on the Console 1. It's all muscle memory. Now, granted, on the Console 1, you didn't have a lot of control, so you could do muscle memory to control it, like muscle memory on the EQ, muscle memory on the compressor. So you could get away with it because there wasn't a lot of buttons. But when it came to like touching the faders and stuff like that, there was a lot of what is that, and you didn't really have a digital screen, something like this where you can just look at it and go. But the Console 1 sounded great. I loved it. It's just this fit a little bit more, my style and how I go about mixing and tracking. So that's a few of the reasons why I replaced it. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to go ahead and show you when do I use the UF8 and the UC1 and the UF1, and I have another UF8 over here. Now, just to let you know, the reason why I don't show both UF8s is because I would have to pull the camera back way too far, and it's going to be showing way too much of up here and down here. And basically, you're not going to be able to see much of this because it's going to be pulled back so far. It's a wide angle lens, but trust me, I'm about from here to here, probably like 13 inches. From here to here is 13 inches. So if I pull back, it's this is going to get really small. So I apologize that you can't see the left and right. But that brings me to a point. The control center here, not talking about the faders, just the control section, is from here to here. Everything you need is in between here, not talking about the faders, just all the buttons and functionality here. This section here on the UF8, okay, is also on the other end over here that you can't see on this UF8. This section here on this UF8, again, is also on that end where you can't see. So it's perfect for if a few people are sitting in front of the console, you can be on that end and control the same thing as somebody on that end. You don't have to reach across them to get to something. You can hit play, stop, and rewind from here. You can hit play, stop, and rewind from here. You can hit play, stop, and rewind from over there. I can hit play, stop from here. So a lot of the things are redundant across the board. The fastest way to hit play and stop, though, is right here, of course. But if you have 4 UF8s, you can actually have 4 people sitting in front of here and somebody can stop and say something and do something, or, hey, check this out, or so on and so forth. You can have just more than one person sitting in front of this thing. But just to let you know, everything here, I don't have to worry about reaching way over there to control something using this system because it's right here. So just keep that in mind. This is basically what we're concentrating on today. All right. So let's get into the UF8. I use the UF8 for selecting tracks and then banking between tracks. So of course I can easily select tracks from here. All right, easy. I can select tracks from here, but in here I would have to start turning this to get to the track. It's good to have this and this because I can be controlling, I can have track 16 here, I can have the master section here, and then on the UF8s I can have them doing other tracks. Okay, I can have these over here just showing me my buses, my 8 buses. I can have these over here showing me my tracks at the same time. I can have this here showing me my master or track 17 or any other track. So again, somebody can be over there, somebody can be over here, and then somebody can be in the middle doing whatever they want to do. You will not overlap and start touching and running into people. It's a beautiful way to work. All right, another reason why I use the UF8 is I use it for automation. If I want to automate more than one track at a time, I can use the UF8 for that. If I want to do one track at a time, I can easily do this. I can ride the fader like this. It's not a problem. But back in the day, you would have a lot of people, not a lot of people, probably 2-3 people over here writing faders for during the song while recording onto tape. That's how a lot of people used to do automation back in the day. When you had those big, large format consoles, you can actually program the console to write multiple faders at a time. So you would have 2 hands over here writing faders, 2 hands over here writing faders, you know, and then the console could record it. So if you wanted to work that way today, you could do that. Or you can go ahead and use your trusty mouse and draw your automation in there. And I give you a tip. Handwriting an automation sounds better than drawing a straight line inside your DAW. Okay, so I would use it for automation. That's number 2, why I would use it. Number 3, I would use the UF8s for mixing, just straight up mixing. You can come in here and you can adjust your volume controls. You can adjust your pans, okay? And you can adjust plugins if you wanted to. You can do so many things. All you have to do is just select your plugin, and then up here you can see some of the parameters for your plugins. Now, I don't really use that because let's say your plugin has 40 parameters, then you would have to start banking to get to that parameter, and a lot of people wouldn't use that. But if you wanted to, you could. You could actually control your parameters from there. So I would probably, if I had to adjust a parameter, I would definitely go ahead and use the mouse for that, unless it's channel strip, EQ, bus compressor, anything like that that this can do, I would use this. If it was one parameter that I wanted to ride, let's just say like a filter opening and closing, yeah, I can come over here and do that also if I wanted to. But just setting up the parameters, most people are going to go ahead and set up the parameter, like set it and forget it. They're going to use the mouse to set it and forget it. Okay? So I would use the UF8s for mixing. All right, just straight up mixing. I would also, on the UF8s, you can also record arm tracks on the UF8. You can record arm here. Since I have this, I can just easily record arm just by hitting from here. Turn it on and off. I can hit record arm from here also. But I have this program that's just faster. Plus, this is in a menu, and this is in menu soft key 16. So I would have to actually scroll over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would have to scroll over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to record arm, or just go ahead and press it here. I would probably leave this menu on here where I can skip to my locators. I can also, inside of Ableton, I can also go from arrange view to session view. Okay. I'm sorry, arrange view to session view. I can go back and forth between the two. That's what this is here. Arrange view, session view. So very, very quick, very, very easy. I can close my browser. Again, this is in Ableton, but different DAWs will have different functionalities. But I can close my browser, open my browser on the bottom of Ableton. I can close my details. And then now I have all of just the DAW. Now, if I wanted to close the plugin, I can actually close the plugin too. So this is easier than grabbing your mouse, dragging down here to this button over here, dragging your mouse over here to go ahead and open and close this, coming over here to open and close this. I can do it all from Ableton right here. Switch back and forth, open the browser, and then I can show my plugins. There we go. Open and close the plugin. You have to be on a track that has it. And if you had a clip selected, let's just say here, I can go to clip view, pull up the clip on the bottom of there. So if I wanted to look at it, if I wanted to get to it, I can go to it real quick. Show, hide the plugins, open up the clip view. Of course, off the screen, we have the play. Okay, I have the ropes, I have record, I have the play, I have cycle, I have all of that on over there. Of course, you can do the same thing over here. Now, also with the UF8s, I would be using it for mutes and solos. Here's solo and here's cut. On the UF8s, they call them cut instead of solo, mute, but mutes and solos here. And then, of course, track select here. So I would be doing that here instead of grabbing a mouse, just super fast, super quick. Then you can turn those off. Also, of course, panning. Now, this might seem obvious, but just keep this in mind. I can do the panning inside my DAW, okay? That's number one. On track 26, I can do the panning. I can also do another panning here on a totally separate track. All right. So we got two pannings here if I wanted to. And if you want to reset the panning, you just press it. Start the pan. You want to reset it, press it. Now, another thing also, of course, on the track, we can adjust the volume. But let's say if you wanted to get back to zero, instead of trying to fiddle around with it and trying to find zero, you can hit flip. Now it moves the panning to here, and it moves the volume to here. So if you want to get that volume back to zero, all you have to do is just press it. This is a reset button. Flip it again, and if I had that pan someplace else, I press it, it reset it. Again, change the volume. Flip it, press it, come back, and the volume goes back to zero. Okay, so this is an awesome feature. You don't have to, again, play around with the mouse trying to get your panning back to zero or your volume back to zero. All you have to do is just flip it and it's set. Done. Now, there is also another way I would use the flip function. If I was mixing, I had a bunch of tracks and I was mixing. You could use the faders for volume control. No problem. Now, if you wanted to use your pans, you can pan this way. But if you turn that flip function on, now you can do panning on your faders. And you might be like, why would you do that? This is a little cool to pan and back and forth. In the middle, it's going to be centered, but you can pan back and forth this way. So you can do a bunch of them. You can actually see how your pans are coming out instead of having just a knob and you have to look at the number. So you can actually see where you want something placed in the stereo field. So that's kind of cool to do it that way. I like that way of doing it. Again, you can press that flip and then press all of these back on the UF8, and it will reset all your pans back to normal. Now, also on the UF8s, UF8s has that flip function also. The next thing I would use the UF8 for is if you didn't have, these two and you just had the UF8, you can still open up your browser inside of Ableton. Again, other DAWs are going to have their own. I can open up the details inside of Ableton. Track clip, I can look at the track clip if I had a track there with, some WAV files on it. And you can go or from arrangement view. I'm over here, by the way. You can go from arrangement view back to session view from the UF8. But if I was to go ahead and hit these buttons over here, I have other functions also. I have undo, I have redo, I have a punch in, I have a punch out, I have follow. I can tell Ableton to follow the cursor. I have the draw automation if you want to draw automation. Undo, punch out, and then if I go to another thing I can do, I can group tracks also with the UF8. I can add tracks. I have an add track button over here with the UF8. Again, don't have to use the mouse, okay, to add a track. Of course, you just go to where you want it, hit right click on the mouse and hit add track, scroll down and add track. Don't have to do that. I just hit a button that says add track, okay? I can add a MIDI track, add an audio track. I have separate buttons for those. So that's why I would use the UF8 for that. Another reason why I would use the UF8s is I can use this knob here for focus mode. If I have focus mode on the UF1, I would have to click here, go over to focus on the screen here, press click, and then on track 14, if I come over here, pull up the SSL channel strip, and I can hover over the pan knob if I wanted to. And I'm sorry, I'm on the UF8, and then I can use focus. But if you notice, I had to go into focus mode on the UF1. On the UF8s, they have a dedicated button for focus on the UF8s. So yes, I can do it here. If I had nothing else going on, I'll switch it over. But see, now I'm in focus mode. If I start turning stuff, I could, like if I want to use this for a track. So I rather put this back into track select mode. Now I can select my tracks. And then if I need focus mode, come over here, press focus, turn it on, and then come up here and then just start adjusting. Now, the other thing I would use the UF8s for is for buses. Back in the day, I had a Mackie 32x8 that had 32 faders, channels, and then it had a separate 8 channels just for buses. So if I just wanted to look at my buses, I would have to go into 360 mode, and I'm in my buses right here. These are all my buses. That's regular tracks. Now, I just want to back up a little bit. This side is not moved, okay? I come over here. These are still looking at regular channels. This is looking at just buses. So I can use this UF8 just for my buses, and over here I can use these for tracks. These have not moved. I come back over here. Now I have 8 over here, and another 8 tracks over here, and another 8 tracks over here. If I just want my buses, boom, buses. So if I'm mixing, I can just come over here to my buses and start messing with my buses if I wanted to. Okay? If I wanted to do tracks, right back, boom, right back and forth to tracks. Now, another thing that I would use on these are the soft keys. You have 5 banks of soft keys. That's one bank, another bank, another bank, another bank, another bank. So you have 5 banks of soft keys. This UF8 can have its own separate soft keys than this one. They don't have to mimic each other. So I can have a bank over here of 8 soft keys and another bank over here of 8 soft keys. You can program these soft keys. So if you do the math, 16 times 5, that's how many soft keys you can program to do what you want. Add track, hide plugin, show plugin, clip view, loop feature, arm, disarm. Anything you can program on this, you can program over here. So you don't have to necessarily remember keyboard shortcuts to do certain things. You can program them up here. And they actually say it right here. So I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but you can read exactly what it is up here. And it's easy to get to banks. All you got to do is remember the bank that you want, and then boom, you go there and then select what you want. These I have empty. So I have plenty of room to add whatever I want. The last thing when it comes to mixing, I could switch between the Ableton mixer, or I can go over to the 360 mixer. And these faders will control the SSL mixer using the UF8. So all I do is come to layer 2. Just layer 1 is the Ableton DAW. Layer 2 is the 360 mixer, and that's what you see on the screen here. Okay, I can select my tracks using the channel encoder. Now, inside of here, I'm using 2 different channel strips. These gray ones here are the SSL 9000 channel strips, and these black ones here are the 4KB channel strip from SSL. It's like the channel strip that came out before the 4000E channel strip. So this is the 4000, the 4KB 4000B channel strip. I believe they are going to be coming out with the 4000E channel strip, but this sounds similar to it. It was just the one before that. Okay, now with the 360, I might as well just show you this real quick. You have all your width, your pan, you have the same thing that can show up on your channel strip controller. You can do all your mixing here. This is just like being in front of a large console mixing board. Now you can look at your routing here for your EQ, filter, and dynamics. You can tell the software to put the filter before the EQ after the filter, the dynamics, so on and so forth. Here, all the way up here, you have the track numbers, and then here you have the track names. So you can see names and track numbers. If you don't want this up here and you want more mixing real estate, you can close that. And then now you have more mixing real estate. You want to get rid of your faders, you can close that. I have a 43-inch monitor, so I don't really need to keep those closed, but if you had a smaller monitor, you could. So I like to keep mine open. Over here on the right-hand side is the metering section. All right, so I like to have my metering section open, but if you want it, you know, you can go ahead and close it if you want. But this will show the current meter. I'll get into this when I get to the UC1, but this is showing the current meter, and these are all the other meters. And I have a SSL bus compressor on all my buses here. All right, and you can turn them on, you can turn them off. It's totally up to you. You can do that all from the UC1. I can turn it on and off right from the console, UC1. But again, we're going to get into that. I'm just showing you a little bit of the 360 software. I can switch between the Ableton mixer, or I can go over to the SSL mixer, and I can switch that from here just by pressing this. This is the SSL faders now, all right? And these are Ableton faders. And that's that. Go back to here. And these are Ableton tracks, and these are SSL tracks. If I hit play, you see how we have stereo meters. That shows that you are in the 360 mixer. That's what this is here. All right. These meters will also represent up here. And you can hold down here to see your routing, and then you also see the meters up here. Okay. And like I said, I can go back into, you have one single meter, and this is for your Ableton metering. So I can go back and forth to mixing. If you did a lot of mixing inside of Ableton and you don't want to mess that up, you just want to add additional to whatever you did inside of Ableton, no problem. Open up that 360 mixer. You can do whatever you want on here. Okay, as far as EQ, dynamics, compression, you know, so on and so forth. All right. Okay, that's what I would use the UF8s for. It's just for mixing. A lot of that stuff I went over was just mixing. All right, now let's switch over to the UC1. With the UC1, it's very, very, very obvious with the UC1. We're going to be using it for EQ, okay? Bus compression, the SSL bus compressor. We have a compressor section here, a channel compression. Okay. We have expansion here and a noise gate. All right. That's what we're going to be using the UC1 for. You can also select tracks on that UC1 if you wanted to. All right. That can do that. You can, let me push this back into Ableton Mixer. You can, let me pull up the SSL native channel strip. And now it is going to be track 18, track 22, whatever track you have the channel strip on is going to show up here and it's going to show up here. All right. It's going to follow whatever one you pick. Now, on here, of course, we have our filtering on the top. All right. You see that on the screen. We have our EQ section here. We have the E channel strip if you wanted to use that one. And if you take that off, you have the G EQ channel strip. And this button here is the in and out for the EQ. You have the gain in, and then you have the gain out of this channel, of this track right here. All right. You can adjust your routing from here. EQ before the filter before the EQ, whatever you want, you can adjust that from here. Okay. Now, if you didn't have the UF8s or UF1 and you wanted to play stop, you can come over here and you would have to press this button here. And then this turns into a stop button and this turns into a play button. So you could stop and play if you just had the UF8 and nothing else. Or you can, have this thing sitting in front of you. It's up to you. Okay. But like I said, I don't use this anymore. Okay. I use this. All right. So no more. I don't have to menu dive into that. I can bring that back. Now, the other thing also, if you press back here on the UF8, if you go ahead and look at the plugin on the UF8, you have Mixx compression. There is no dedicated knob for Mixx compression up here. All right. But if you go ahead and press this button, now you can use this knob, multifunction knob, to adjust your mix. You just press it, it turns green, and then you can go ahead. Let me see if I can get out of the way of the camera. Nope, I cannot. But yeah, I think you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. You can adjust your Mixx compression. Okay. So that's one thing. Press it again, it comes out of Mixx compression. You can turn it, and then you can turn it, press it, and then you can adjust your pan on your UF8. Now, you might be like, why didn't they put a pan knob up here? I can't answer that for you, but you can come into pan here. And of course, UF1 has its own pan, UF8s have their own pan. We understand that. But if you just had this, you can go ahead and pan. Come out of it, you also have width. You can adjust your width. If you go ahead and look at the channel strip here, it has a width knob. Okay, and just to let you know, this is version 2 of the channel strip. Version 1 of the channel strip, if I remember correctly, there wasn't a pan or width knob on that version 1 channel strip. So with version 2, we got a width knob and a pan knob, if I remember correctly. Okay, so since this was already created, they came out with the version 2 here. That's why this was added here. Now you also have the out trim. Okay. Oh, there we go. You have the out trim that you can select here, and on the graphical interface, the out trim is here. You can use your mouse to adjust it, or you can go ahead and press this, turn it green, and then you can go ahead and adjust it from here. Okay? So if you did not have your plugin open, you can come over here and adjust all those things I just told you about without having that plugin open, if that's what you wanted to do. Now, the other thing, I'm going to open up that plugin again. Now, the other thing we also have here is the solo safe. If your DAW uses a solo safe mode, then you can go ahead and turn it on and off from here. Okay? So that's the hidden functions on version 2 channel strip that you can go ahead and use on the UF8. Okay? All right. So we spoke about track compression and expansion. We spoke about the noise gate. We bus compression, and this is the bus compressor here. So on the, let's say if we go to the master, and then on the master section, I can turn master bus compressor on and off. You can go to your groups and do the same thing, but I can go ahead and turn it off from here. Then of course I have my compression controls, so I can adjust the parameters for my bus compressor over here on this channel. Now, the only thing that is not on the hardware that is on the software is the oversampling. On the software, you have oversampling off, then you have 2 times and then 4 times. I usually leave it off until I'm going for mix down. Once I'm hitting mix down, then I'm going ahead and turning that to 4 times oversampling. You can turn off your external sidechain also from the plugin and mix lock it. Oh, if you wanted to select which bus you're controlling, you have to turn this knob and you can switch your buses. So this knob here is to select your tracks, and this knob here is to, let me put that back to master. Oops, wrong way. There we go. You can select your tracks from here, and this knob here is to select your buses. With the SSL software setup, you can use up to 8 SSL bus compressors, and you would just use this knob. If you remember this knob, if you press it, it can stop and play. Press it again, you can select your buses. Okay, another thing with the UC1, we have the sidechain. You can listen to your sidechain by pressing this button here. You have polarity button, so you can flip polarities. All right, you can turn the channel on and off, of course. All right, if your DAW supports solo clear, you can solo clear. And then on this channel here, you also have solo cut. And then you have fine control. If you turn it to fine and start turning knobs, of course, it's going to be a finer adjustment. So that is what I would be using the UC1 for. Now, I recently did a video on the UF8. You can go ahead and watch that if you haven't watched it yet. So I don't think I'm going to get too much in detail with this, the UF8, but I am going to explain it just in case you haven't seen the UF8 video. But I'm going to go over it very quickly. And if, you want to see a more detailed video, you can go over and watch that video. Okay, so let's go over real quick what I would be using a UF8 for. Of course, I would use it for transport control. I would use it for scrubbing through my tracks. All right. Now, I say the word scrubbing. If I turn up the speakers, hit stop. You're not actually scrubbing through the tracks. I just say scrub, but I'm actually jogging through. If I hit play, I'm getting some kind of scrubbing, but yeah, you can scrub through your tracks if you wanted to. And it's a weighted jog wheel, so it's very nice. Okay, so scrub through the tracks. I used the UF1. Let's stop that. Use the UF1 for locators, going back and forth for my locator points. I would use the UF1 for focus mode. We spoke about focus mode, using the focus mode on the UF8. But if I'm on a dedicated channel and I wanted to use focus mode here and not touch my UF8 for whatever reasons, I can use focus mode on there. I can call up the 360 software from the UF8 also. There it is. Call up the 360 software from the UF8. Just to let you know, when you press your, let's go back to the Ableton. When you press the 360 button on the UC1, it pulls up the mixer right away. Okay, go back to Ableton. When you press the 360 button on the UF8s, it goes into that window. This is how you can set your soft keys. But all you have to do is just come over here and press the plugin mixer, and then boom, you're back into your plugin mixer. And then when you press 3 on the UF8, it also brings up the UF8 programming page. Why does it do that? I'm not sure. But again, you can just come over here and press the 360. Okay, now if I come back to Ableton, now on the UC1, if I was to press the 360 button, I'll go straight to the plugin mixer. So as far as plugin mixer, yes, you can get to them from these other ones, but I would be using the 360 button here on the plugin mixer. Of course, on the UC1, I would be using the plug-in mixer, I would be using the metering. Okay, obviously, definitely using that awesome metering. Okay, this track isn't mixed, by the way, so don't pay a mind to any of the meters. But this I would definitely be using the metering on the UC1. Just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful meters. Beautiful. Okay, so I would be using the metering on the UF1. I could also do banking on the UC1. Okay, you can bank on the UF8s as well. Okay, but depending on where I am, where I'm sitting, how far I am away, I would be using the banking on the UF1. Track arming, we went over this before. I would arm the tracks from here. Okay, you can arm it from the UF8s as well. Next thing I'll be using the UF1 for is occasional mute and solo. If I'm on this track and I want to hit mute and solo, boom, I'll hit mute and solo here. But I'm not necessarily going to go to the track and hit mute or solo when I could just reach my hands out here and press mute or solo. If you don't have the UF8s, mute and solo right here. Okay? You know what's cool about this also? If you have one of your tracks soloed, the UF1 tells you it's soloed. That's beautiful. That's just an extra touch that's nice. Yeah, you can actually see it, but the UF1 lets you know it's soloed. Another thing about the UF1, I'll be turning on and off the metronome from here. All right, you have 46 assignable backlit keys. Okay, so these keys up here, if you go down, you can assign these to whatever you want. You have 10 pages. All right. 10 times 4 is 40, but remember you have keys over here. So you have 46 assignable keys that you can assign to whatever you want. In and out, add locator, previous locator, next locator, browse, detail, session view, arrange view. You can go ahead and program those soft keys to whatever you want. You have 46 of them. That's just on the UF1. Okay? We spoke about how many soft keys you have on the UF8s. So that's the UF1. That's what I would be using the UF1 for. Hope I didn't forget anything because I already spoke about it. I did a video on it. So I hope I didn't forget anything that's so obvious. All right. So now we are going to talk about the last piece here, which is the SSL 12. Let's see if we can go ahead and move this. So this little bad boy here. Don't sleep. Don't sleep. Okay, so I am going to call up the 360 software. All right, and then I'm going to come over here and select the SSL 12. Okay. Now, with the SSL 12, you have volume monitor control. You have your record mic gains. Okay. You have, of course, your phantom power. You have your line in, or you can have high Z inputs from the front or line in from the front if you want to hook up a keyboard or something like that to it. You have your filter, your low end cut also here. All right. Oh, and you have your input gain readout right here. Okay. Over here, we have a talkback button. There's a microphone here. You can have different mixes for each headphone. Okay. So everybody doesn't have to hear the same thing. You have alternative speakers. Back here, you can hook up two separate pair of speakers. Okay. You can have your main. If this light here is off, it'll be your main speakers, and then you press that, then you will be listening through your alternative set of speakers. Okay, this button here is for muting. Okay, now these buttons are programmable, just to let you know. This could be mute, this could be alternative, this could be dim, this could be dim. You can use this for dim if you want. There's also, you can program them to be a mono button. You can switch polarity. Okay, you can program these three to do whatever you want. All right, and you, of course, you have headphone mix control. All right. And that's it with the front panel, but on the back you have in and out midis. You have a ADAT input. Okay, so you can have a another hardware interface that has that can record like 8 channels, and it had ADAT out. You can go ADAT in here, and then that will also show up on your SSL 12 in the 360 software as an additional 8 channels. Okay. You can hook up to 4 microphones. Okay, and these are I forget what they're called, but they're dual input microphones. They can take mic inputs or 1/4-inch inputs here. And you can hook up to 2 high-Z inputs here from the front and I believe from the back. If you hook them up from the front, the backs will cut off. If you hook them up from the back, the fronts will cut off, if I remember correctly. But that is the SSL 12. Now, I used to have a different audio device. I would have kept it, but there was a problem with it. I use these headphones and they have a very low impedance, and that unit did not work well with those headphones, the Odyssey LCDXs. In this studio, I use the LCDXs a lot, and when I was using the other audio interface, I couldn't pinpoint it, but there was something wrong. It didn't get loud enough. And when it did, it didn't sound full. It sounded tinny. Something was wrong with it. I did a little bit of researching, and I'll put a link in the description for you to check out. I don't want to mess up his name, Julian Krause. I probably got that name wrong, but I'm going to put a link in there. And if you go look at his video, he'll explain different interfaces when it comes to mixing interfaces with headphones. Once I watched this video, I realized that could be my problem. The impedance on those headphones are very low. Now, this SSL 12 can switch between high impedance headphones and low impedance headphones. It has actually 3 different headphone options for the SSL 12. The 3 are high impedance, and that is for 250 ohms or greater. That's one of the settings. And then you have standard for a wide range of headphones. And then you have high sensitivity, and that's most applicable for in-ear monitors or high sensitive headphones. What's also awesome about this, if you know anything about audio interfaces, you want your output impedance in ohms as low as possible. This is less than 1 ohm output impedance. My other interface was not. So this matches my headphones perfectly, and it sounds really, really good. All right, guys, I believe that is it with this system. That's what I would use it for. I hope the video wasn't too long. I tried to make it as quick as possible, but I just wanted to let everybody know it wasn't just pan, volume, transport control, so on and so forth. You will be using this to move faster and get things done faster in the studio, especially if you do a lot of mixing and mastering. I do a lot of stem mastering and regular mixing. So having something like this actually really helps improve my workflow and helps me work a lot faster. All right, I believe that is it. So now let's get into what it sounds like. On my buses, I'm going to turn off all the buses, all the bus compression. Okay. So we're going to see what this sounds like. That's a master. All my buses are off. And we're going to go to all my channels. When you're using a system like this, you want to make sure you put the SSL channel strip on every single track, including your returns, your buses, your master channel. If audio runs through it, you want to make sure you put a channel strip on that. Okay, so now this track is not mixed. It's not finished yet. There's a female that is going to be singing to this. So the track is not mixed until she puts down her vocals. But just to give you an idea of what the actual channel strip sounds like. Okay, let's go ahead and let me come back. And we are going to, let's play it from, yeah, let's go here. Let's play it from here. All right. That's the difference between with and without. All right, so that's it for today's video. Do me a favor, let me know in the comments what kind of videos would you like to see next. I'm going to be shooting another video in a few days, so look out for that. And that's it. Until next time, peace.